Hi and welcome to today's episode in which I'm going to attempt to make a meal in 30 minutes. When I was in the supermarket, I picked up some baby button mushrooms, so I thought, well, just buy those and see what I can make with them. Then I remembered I'd bought these from the Chinese supermarket a while ago. Now these, I think, are lion's mane mushrooms that have been dried. So that's them out of the packet. I've never used these before, and I don't think I've ever had one, even like unless it's been in something at a Chinese restaurant and I've just not known it. Been soaking one for a couple of hours. I just made up some beef flavoured stock just to kind of boost the flavour up a little bit, and then poured it over, and then I pinned it in place just because it kept bobbing up. But yeah, you can see it looks a little bit maney. I'm going to have it with some red rice on the side. Now, I've never cooked the red one before. I did the black rice for the purple tempeh, so I'm going to do it in a similar process to that. The instructions just say boil it for 20 minutes, and that's it. So I'm just going to chuck it in, I guess, and hope for the best. Whatever I don't use today, I will just put in the freezer and then I can have it another day. It comes in a little vacuum bag, tightly packed like a brick. It's a whole grain rice, and apparently it's got quite a nutty flavour and a nice chew to it when you bite it, and that's it raw. So yeah, I'm just gonna, I think, pour a load in. A very quick stir, and then once it comes back up to the boil, which it has, I'll drop it down to a simmer and put the lid on. Onto the stroganoff itself, so I'm going to use a couple of white onions. You can use any kind you like. So I'm just going to cut the end off, split it in half, and then peel off the outer layer or two of skin and peel. And I'm going to do a fairly large dice on this one, partly for speed. Then I'm going to heat up about a tablespoon or so of olive oil. Once the oil's up to heat, I'm going to drop in the onions. I'm going to try and get this in frame for you. I'll show you how to saute, which is French for jump. So what you're doing is pushing your pan down and then flipping it up. So it's that kind of movement. Fry off the onions for about, 7 minutes or so. You want them to go nice and translucent and soft. In the meantime, I'll clean up the mushrooms. So you really want to keep mushrooms away from water because they're like little sponges, and then you just get like a really waterlogged flavour. So just give it like a light rubbing on a bit of paper towel, and that'll get any muck or anything off. Keep one eye on your mushrooms, one eye on the onions, just so the onions don't burn. Just move them in the pan every couple of minutes. This is one of those dishes that's really easy to kind of customise or sub things in and out, not a problem at all. If I can find the history of a stroganoff, I'll slide it in for you. I want to say it's maybe Hungarian, but that could be wrong. So yeah, I'll let you know. Classically, it's made with beef. It's a beef stroganoff, but I'm going to use mushrooms, and I'm going to chuck in a can of chickpeas as well, just for some extra texture and a bit of protein, that kind of thing. I'm using 400 grams altogether of button mushrooms, but you can use any kind you want really, whatever you can get hold of. If you get any that are sort of massive, just chop them in half. Once the onions have got a nice bit of colour and they're starting to soften down, go to a bit translucent, it's time to chuck in the mushrooms. Drop those in. Give those a stir through, and then we'll let those cook down for a few minutes. I'm going to start releasing a load of liquid. I thought I had fresh garlic and now I can't find it, so I'm going to have to use garlic granules, like dried garlic, and then I'll also pop in some dried thyme. So I'll do about half a teaspoon or so of each, maybe a teaspoon of thyme. Work that in. And do a little pinch of salt. I'm not doing a whole lot at this time because I'm going to add some beef flavoured stock, and that's got a bit of salt in as well, so I don't want to overpower it. And then black pepper. And then just keep cooking that down. The rice timer's just gone off, so I'll have a look at that. I don't know if I'd call it red, but still. A couple more minutes, literally just like 2 or 3 more minutes, then I think it'll be good to go. I'm going to have a peek at the lion's head that's been soaking. So I'm somewhat gently squeezing the mushroom just to get some of this excess stock out of there. And then I'll use that stock in the dish. It reminds me a bit of a sea sponge. So I'm going to split it and see what that's like. So I'm just kind of tearing it into chunks. and that's not working terribly well, so I'll cut it. I can see this white part here, and I'm not 100% sure what it is. So it doesn't feel dry, so it must be part of the mushroom. Diced it all up into kind of bite-sized pieces. Put the rice on for another 2 minutes. It's probably going to have about half an hour instead of the liar of the packets, 20 minutes. Once the mushrooms are cooked through, it's going to take about 10 minutes or so. That's what it's taking these. It's a while longer than I thought it would. You just want it to be cooked through, and they'll suddenly feel much heavier than they did when they went in raw. So try and pick one up, and they're kind of a bit springy. The base of this is going to be coconut cream. Dollop that in. So it's going to be quite a rich dish, very full of flavour. Stir that through. Add in the lion's mane. Should have done that before really, not that it matters as such. So stir the lion's mane into it. Rice is done, so I'm going to drain that. So the rice is all cooked and drained off and hot. I want to make the sauce a little bit darker in colour and also a bit more rich in flavour. So I'm going to add in some Henderson's relish, which is a bit like a vegan Worcester sauce, that kind of thing. Drizzle some of that in. So we'll do about a teaspoon and then give it a stir and try it. But just, you know, put a little bit in and try it. Do it to your taste, whatever you like. I've got a little bit of plain yogurt left in my pot, so I'm going to stick some of that in just to give it a bit of a tangy edge, because the coconut cream's quite sweet. So I just want a bit of tang, bit, you know, that kind of thing in there. In a non-vegan one, you'd use creme fraiche, which is, as far as I can remember, it's like a fermented cream. Pour the yogurt in. When it comes to vegan yogurts, you want to look for one that's got no added sugars, if you can find them, because they're just much nicer. Fold that through. And I might need to add a bit more Henderson's in, but we'll see. Check the flavour, see if I want anything else in there. A bit more salt, a bit more pepper. We're going to add a large pinch of MSG. This is monosodium glutamate. There's a lot of controversy around it. I'm not going to get into that. Make your own decisions. I use it, you know, it's fine. But it gives a really nice umami kick, a lot of savouriness, but without packing in loads of salt, because it's got much lower sodium than regular salt does. If you eat Doritos and that kind of thing, it's in there. So you can see it's kind of little crystals. So sprinkle those in. A good pinch of that. And then finally, I'm going to add in some drained chickpeas. I've drained off all of the excess liquid, but I've not rinsed them or anything. Mix that through. And then I'll just cook that off for a few minutes so that the chickpeas warm through. I'm going to squeeze in a little bit of lemon juice just to lift the flavour up a tiny bit. That adds a little bit of brightness to the dish, because the coconut cream is very rich and a little bit sweet as well. So by putting in the lemon juice, it will cut through that a little bit. And then I'm going to put a few spoonfuls of the beef stock that I use to soak the mushrooms in, just to get a bit saucy in there. So it kind of drowns the rice a little bit. By all means, feel free to put some stock powder directly in there if you want to boost up the flavour. I'm going to add a bit of smoked paprika. It's just got a really lovely flavour to it. So I'll do maybe 1/4 teaspoon, something like that. Sprinkle that over. So that's about ready to go. It's looking deliciously rich and inviting. So you've got the beautiful sort of creamy browns on the mushroom, onions and chickpeas. And then you've got this little kind of browny red peeking through from the rice. I'm estimating about 40 minutes that took me from the time I started to where we are now. Some of that time was waiting for the mushrooms to cook down. So if you wanted it really fast, just chop those mushrooms down. Keep in mind though that filming things makes everything take almost twice as long. So it's probably going to take way less time than it took me. So here's that lion's mane. I'm just going to bite into it, see if you can see some of the structure. So it looks a little bit like tuna. And as I'm eating it, it has got a kind of tuna texture to it. So I think if you soaked the mushroom maybe in some seaweed and a bit of lemon juice, that's going to kind of amplify the sea kind of taste to it. And then chop it down small and put it in some mayonnaise. And you've got really nice tuna mayo. I find with some dried mushrooms, like the shiitake that I use, when you rehydrate them, they're very chewy, but that's really nice and tender. It's not, you know, you're not having to work it for ages in between your teeth. It's nice. The sauce itself is really nice. It's rich, but it's not sickly and it's not too heavy. There is a lightness to it, but without being, I don't know, it doesn't feel like diet food or anything. And that red rice, it has got a really nice texture to it. Nice bit of nuttiness in terms of flavour. Yeah, that makes a really nice alternative to just, you know, plain boiled white rice. Let's have a go, mushrooms and rice. Lots of nice flavours going on there, but there's nothing too aggressive, nothing dominant. Everything works together really nicely. Yeah, so the rest of it will go in the freezer and then pulled out for emergencies. The sauce doesn't taste at all like coconut, I promise you it doesn't. But if for whatever reason you can't either find it or you can't eat it, you could use all yogurt and then maybe put in a few dollops of vegan cream cheese just to give it that richness and that kind of tanginess. That would work quite well. You could possibly try making like an oat cream. So you're making oat milk, blending down raw oats with water, squeezing it, but you want to make it really strong. So I don't know, do like a cup of oats to a cup of water maybe. Squeeze it and then pour that in, and as it heats it thickens. So that could be an option for you if you need to avoid the nut cream kind of thing. For more vegan food that's packed with flavour but minimal prep time, hit subscribe, tap the bell icon and have a look at this.